request rearming.
Hello, folks. Here we are approaching the range that we're going to do some bombing on, CCIP bombing. And it's kind of hard to pick out the target there. You can see, even though we know that the target is south of the lake there along the coast. So what we do is we put in a waypoint, and then we use the waypoint designate method to place a diamond on the target area, which you can see there. And in this case, it's on the eastern bowl in the range that I've created. Then it's just a matter of turning in along the run-in line to enter the range. And we're going to enter the range from the south, because the run-in line is a south to north run-in line. And when I designated the target, my bombing computer switched to auto so that it would help me find the target. And when I'm ready to start bombing, I just undesignate the target, and my system goes back to CCIP, which is what I'm looking for. So on the first run, it's a no drop. We come in overhead the target at approximately release altitude. And then we pitch up into the pattern, pulling about 4 to 5 Gs, and about a 12.5 degree climb to a heading of 195. Which is about 165 relative to the run-in line. And then we take a peek down at the target to look at the run-in line and the hash marks. And there are 3 hash marks, the middle one being the longest, and it's about a mile from the target. And we use that as our minimum turn-in distance. And once we've got to that line, we can start our turn-in if we think we're ready. Now, don't confuse the circular target with the strafe target, which is to the left of our circular target. And the strafe target is the one with the 3 targets at the end. You can see it down there. Now, we roll in, and we're looking for somewhere between a 50 and a 45 degree dive. It's not all that important, because that's the beauty of CCIP. Now, you can see that this is kind of a clumsy roll in, but all I need to do is drag the cross over the target, hit the pickle, and release the weapon. Now I got a little low on this one, but that's okay. Now you do a wings level pull up to the horizon, and then you turn left back into the pattern, again looking to be 12.5. In this case, I'm a little bit low here, I think. A little bit high, actually. About a 12.5, somewhere between 10 and 15 degrees on the climb. And again, MRT and about a 4 to 5 G pull to 195 degrees, climbing up into the pattern again. And we kind of start the process over again. And as I was saying, those hash marks help us stay in the pattern and keep it nice and tight. Now, this is not a reflection of something that I learned in the Navy. I mean, consistency and repeatability was something that I emphasize when you're manual bombing. But of course, consistency and repeatability is not something that you want to do in combat. Obviously, anything that's repeated can be predicted, and therefore somebody who's shooting at you kind of can figure out where you're going to be. So CCIP was invented, which just kind of allows the pilot to do what he's doing, roll in, and know where the bomb's going to go without having to think about it too much. So your SA, your situational awareness is increased, and so you just put the thing on the thing, as they say, press the pickle, and off you go. Now, like I said, a wings level pull to the horizon, and then a left turn to pick up that 4 to 5G pull, about 12.5 degrees nose high to 195 degrees to get back into the pattern. Now, the reason why I put the hash marks along the run-in line like that was a teaching aid. It's not something that I've seen on any range ever in the Navy. Now, run-in lines do have hash marks, and some of them may look like this, but I was never taught to fly the pattern like this, other than to be consistent, and repeatability was important, because back when I was learning, it was really before many of the smart weapons we have today. In fact, the only smart weapon we had was the walleye, and maybe, I suppose, the Shrike or the Harm, and the Harm came late in my time in the A7. Bottom line here is, this is a fun pattern to fly, and when there's more than one airplane in the pattern, you want to have some regularity to it so that you don't run into each other. And so I devised this little target complex with that in mind. And some of the parameters are based on the need for consistency in a manual pattern, but since we're doing CCIP here, they're more for just keeping the airplanes properly spaced. And you can see there is variability in my run-in. I'm not being as particular as I was in my manual bombing video with being at the correct altitude, being at the correct airspeed, rolling in with the same power setting each time, and trying to release the bomb at the exact point. The only thing that's consistent here is I'm hitting the pickle when the crosses the target that I'm trying to hit. And hopefully the computer does its work. Okay, the only other thing that I want to discuss are pattern voice procedures. These are, if not standard, they are the kind of thing that all patterns have, just to let other flight members know where you are, and to let the range control people know where you are in the pattern. And I'm going to have 3 in this lesson. The first is at roll-in, and it'll go something like this. 407 in hot. Then I'll go about the business of putting the thing on the thing and hitting the pipper, pulling off. 407 off safe. And by safe, I mean I'm just not going to hit the pipper until I come around again. And I'll pull back into the pattern, 12.5 degrees, 4 to 5 Gs, 195, and then start climbing back up. And I'll take a look over on the left side to look at the hash marks to judge when I have to turn back in. And it's usually at the about the mid hash mark. 407 turning in. And then the only other call you'd want to make is if there's some sort of deviation or overshoot or something that you want to let everybody know about. And it'll go something like the following. .407 in hot, wide. And that's pretty much it. So that concludes my CCIP lesson, although I'm going to let the video run and we'll pick up with the strafe here in just a second. Okay, I'm back. This is the low pattern, just came off the last of the high drops. And first thing you want to do is reach up and select guns on your DDI there and pull to a heading of 180 to parallel the inbound track. And you want to look for the strafe range, which is indicated by the 3 targets at the northern end. At the southern end, there's a T, which you can see there in the grass. And that's the extent that you want to go south, so you want to turn in. Your southern altitude should be somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 feet. And it's a nice, healthy 4.5 to 5 G pull around the turn. You can vary that to make sure you fly down the running line. Then you just line up the gun sight on the target. I use the center one. Put the thing on the thing and pull the trigger. And you notice that there is a foul line there. Mine was a little bit of a late pull, but I think my shooting stopped prior to the foul line, and so I think my score counted. I'll see later. But the pattern is flown. You pull up after shooting to about 10 degrees or so, and then as you turn, you may increase the your nose attitude to about 15 degrees, but as you continue to turn, let the velocity of the vector slide down to about 5 degrees nose up to make the climb back to the southern end. And again, the altitude somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 feet. Don't fly any further south than the T. Pull so that you fly right over the T inbound. And again, line up the sight. And it'll be about a 10-degree dive, roughly. And just line up the pipper on the target. Pull the trigger. Pull off. 10 to 15 degrees nose up. Pull. And let it slide down to 5 degrees. And it's about a 4.5 to 5 G pull to 180 degrees. And looking for an altitude of 3,000 to 4,000 feet at the southern end. And you want to pull to about 180. If you pull to 195, like you did in the high pattern, you're going to find yourself wide, and you're going to have to drive back to the run-in line. Same call-outs as before, so that everybody knows where each aircraft is. 407, turning in. Looking to find the T to pick up, to roll in, to drive down. 407 in hot. And you can do this from both directions. Line it up. Thing on the thing. Trigger pull. Pull up, wings level. Roll. 407 off safe. And then pull all the way around. I think this next run-in will pull to the other direction, so it's basically the same thing. You can see some bullets coming up from my the third target in this range, which is the I call it the live weapons area, even though we're using live weapons on the other 2 ranges as well. But it's where there are some tanks. There's also a bull there as well, but it's where I use my smart weapons to do some practice. 407's in hot. Now, if there's multiple airplanes in the pattern, it just makes it easier to know where everybody is. And if you were in the same flight and you have your link 16 functioning and turned on, then you can find each other that way as well. But this is pretty much a head out of the cockpit pattern, keeping track of everybody visually. I would only use the link if you lost sight and couldn't find them visually. Definitely a heads up pattern. Keep track of everybody. Listen for voice reports. And if by chance you make your voice report late, then indicate something in your voice report, like 407 in hot late, so they'll know that you're somewhere inside the roll-in point. Thing on the thing, trigger pull. Yeah, you can see that my pull-up isn't really anywhere near 15 degrees, but you can do 15 degrees. Probably 10 is more realistically from an overall. Just let it slide back down like that to about 5 degrees, or whatever's necessary to get between 3 and 4,000 feet at the southern end. That's the big thing. Each run is slightly less than 100 bullets, and so you get about maybe 7 runs, 6 runs, 8 if you're a little bit more judicious. Now, when it comes to aiming the pipper, we say we don't John Wayne it. In all the John Wayne movies, when you see somebody strafing, there's a line of bullets that works its way towards the target. You don't want to do that. You want to focus all your bullets on the target to get maximum effect. Now, if you're strafing troops in an open field and there's a line of troops, then letting the strafe produce a line like that is probably okay. But if you're trying to hit a tank or a vehicle or something like that, you want to put all your bullets, or as many as possible, on the target. And in this case, we're trying to get everything in that little window, which is the strafe target. And to get a good score, you're going to have to do, put that pipper there and hold it. You don't feel, obviously, much reaction from the gun going off, so it's not like you're having to worry about kickback from the weapon. And you just keep doing this until you're out of bullets, and you can get your score on the range by in the F10 menu. And if you have any questions about this pattern or the high pattern, give me a call or a text, actually, in Discord, and we can talk about it. And enjoy the rest of the video, but that's pretty much the end of my lesson.